Hello everyone, this is Professor Hu. In this lecture, I will introduce some very basic concepts related with programming. This is the fourth part, programming methodology. From the perspective of what you will implement in your program, the most popular programming paradigms can be categorized into procedural programming, object-oriented programming, functional programming, and logical programming. From the perspective of how you decompose and analyze a system to implement your program, the programming approaches can be categorized into a top-down or modular approach and bottom-up approach. In procedural programming, a problem is broken into procedures or blocks of code that perform one task each. All procedures are put together to form the whole program. A procedure connects others by a procedural call. Depending on the language, a procedure may be called a procedure or a subroutine or a function that contains a series of computational steps to be carried out. This method was derived from imperative programming, based on the concept of the procedure call. Imperative programming uses commands in a program for the computer to perform. Procedural programming advanced by dividing a big program into blocks or modules that support modular programming, the simplified programming. Procedural programming is developed to support structured programming that breaks a big task into small modules. Languages that support procedural programming include C, BASIC, Pascal, Fortran, Python, etc. In object-oriented programming, a system is broken down into objects, each of which exposes behavior called methods and data called attributes, and connects with others by messaging. An object is an instance of a class, a basic module in object-oriented programming that consists of both data and methods of its own. While procedural programming views the system as a single object, focuses on data flow in the system, and constructs procedures to process the data. Object-oriented programming views a system as a set of interacting subsystems, or multiple objects. Each consists of their own procedures called methods and data called attributes, and is implemented in a class. Procedural programming is a foundation in constructing a class of object-oriented programming. Languages that support object-oriented programming include Smalltalk, C++, Java, C#, Python, etc. Functional programming is very much similar to procedural programming in that it breaks down a big task into small modules called functions, each of which connects another function by a function call and supports module programming and structured programming. The main difference between functional programming and procedural programming is that functional programming languages remove or at least de-emphasize the imperative elements of procedural programming. However, in practice, functional programming and procedural programming are applying styles of each other. Languages that support functional programming include Lisp, Python, Erlang, Haskell, etc. In logical programming, a program is a set of premises, and computation is performed by attempting to prove candidate theorems. From this point of view, logic programs are declarative, focusing on what the problem is, rather than on how to solve it. Languages that support logic programming include Prolog, answer set programming, ASP, data log, etc. Top-down approach is essentially the breaking down of a system to gain insight into its compositional subsystems. Each subsystem is then refined in yet greater detail, sometimes in many additional subsystem levels, until the entire specification is reduced to base elements. This approach is based on the idea of divide and conquer. This approach emphasizes planning and a complete understanding of the whole system. A bottom-up approach is a piecing together of systems to give rise to a more complex system, thus making the original system subsystems of the emergent system. In a bottom-up approach, the individual base elements of the system are first specified in great detail. These elements are then linked together to form larger subsystems, which then in turn are linked, sometimes in many levels, until a complete top-level system is formed. Contrast to the top-down approach, bottom-up emphasizes coding and early testing, which can begin as soon as the first module has been specified. Modern software design approaches usually combine both top-down and bottom-up approaches. In this part, I briefly went over a few most popular programming methodologies: procedural, object-oriented, functional, and logical programming, and top-down and bottom-up approaches. Thanks for watching.